In our last story, we left Joseph languishing in an Egyptian prison, forgotten by the cupbearer whose dream he had interpreted. But God had not forgotten Joseph. His plan was moving forward, and the time for Joseph's elevation from the pit to the palace was at hand. It would begin as it so often did with Joseph, with a dream. 2 full years passed. Then one night, Pharaoh, the mighty ruler of Egypt, had a dream. He was standing by the Nile River when 7 sleek, fat cows emerged and began grazing in the reeds. But then 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up from the river and devoured the healthy ones. Pharaoh awoke, disturbed, only to fall asleep and dream again. This time he saw 7 full, healthy heads of grain growing on a single stalk. Then 7 thin, scorched ears of grain sprouted and swallowed up the good heads. In the morning, Pharaoh's spirit was troubled. He summoned all the magicians and wise men of Egypt, but none could interpret the dreams. It was then that the chief cupbearer's conscience was stirred. He remembered his fault and told Pharaoh of the young Hebrew man in prison who had accurately interpreted his dream and the baker's. Pharaoh wasted no time. Joseph was hastily brought from the dungeon. He shaved, changed his clothes, and was ushered into the presence of the most powerful man in the world. Pharaoh recounted his dreams, and Joseph, giving all credit to God, revealed their meaning. The dream of Pharaoh is one, Joseph explained. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows and 7 good ears of grain represented 7 years of great abundance that would come upon all of Egypt. The 7 gaunt cows and scorched ears of grain represented 7 years of famine that would follow, so severe that the years of plenty would be completely forgotten. The dream was doubled, Joseph said, because the matter was established by God and would happen soon. But Joseph didn't stop at the interpretation. He offered a plan. He advised Pharaoh to find a wise and discerning man and set him over the land. This man should appoint officials to collect 1/5 of the harvest during the 7 years of plenty, storing it in the cities as a reserve against the 7 years of famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and all his officials. Pharaoh looked at his servants and said, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" And turning to Joseph, he declared, "Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you." Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and placed it on Joseph's hand. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. At 30 years old, the boy who was sold into slavery was now the governor of all Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. Just as Joseph had foretold, 7 years of incredible abundance came. The harvest was so plentiful that Joseph gathered grain like the sand of the sea, storing it in cities, until he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. During this time, his wife Asenath gave him 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Then the 7 years of plenty ended, and the 7 years of famine began. The famine was severe, not only in Egypt, but in all the surrounding lands. But in Egypt, there was bread. When the people cried to Pharaoh for food, he directed them to Joseph. And Joseph opened the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians and to people from all over the world who came to buy. The famine was also harsh in the land of Canaan. When Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, he sent 10 of his sons to buy some. But he kept his youngest son, Benjamin, at home, for he feared that harm might come to him, the only remaining son of his beloved wife. Rachel, the 10 brothers journeyed to Egypt and came before the governor of the land, bowing down before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them instantly, but they did not recognize him. He remembered the dreams of his youth, the sun, moon, and stars, and the sheaves of grain bowing before him. The moment had arrived. He spoke roughly to them, accusing them of being spies. They protested their innocence, explaining they were 12 brothers, sons of one man. "One is no more," they said, "and the youngest is with our father." To test them, Joseph demanded they prove their story by bringing their youngest brother back to him. He put them in custody for 3 days. Then, softening his approach, he said he would keep one brother, Simeon, as a hostage, while the rest returned with grain for their starving households. As they prepared to leave, their guilt over what they had done to Joseph years ago washed over them. "Surely we're being punished because of our brother." they said to one another. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us, but we would not listen. They did not know that Joseph understood every word, for he had been speaking to them through an interpreter. Overcome with emotion, Joseph turned away and wept. He then had Simeon bound before their eyes. As they traveled home, one of the brothers opened his sack to get feed for his donkey and found his money at the top. Their hearts sank and they trembled, wondering what God was doing to them. When they reached their father Jacob and told him all that had happened, he was devastated. You have deprived me of my children. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and now you want to take Benjamin. Everything is against me. He refused to let Benjamin go, fearing he would lose him too, and be sent to his grave in sorrow. But the famine continued, and soon the grain they had brought from Egypt was gone. Jacob told his sons to go again, but Judah reminded him of the governor's solemn warning. You will not see my face again unless your brother is with you. Judah pledged his own life as security for Benjamin, persuading Jacob to relent. If I am bereaved, Jacob said in resignation, I am bereaved. So the brothers returned to Egypt, taking Benjamin, double the money, and a gift of the best fruits of their land. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he ordered his steward to prepare a great feast. The brothers were terrified, assuming they were being trapped because of the money returned in their sacks. But the steward reassured them, and to their astonishment brought Simeon out to them. At noon, Joseph came home. They bowed before him and presented their gifts. He asked about their father, the old man they had spoken of. When he saw his own brother, Benjamin, his mother's son, he was overwhelmed with emotion and had to retreat to his private chamber to weep. After composing himself, he ordered the meal to be served. The brothers were seated in order of their birth, from the oldest to the youngest, which amazed them. Joseph served them from his own table, giving Benjamin a portion 5 times larger than anyone else's. But the final test was yet to come. As his brothers prepared to leave the next morning, Joseph secretly instructed his steward to fill their sacks with grain and money, and to place his own personal silver cup in Benjamin's sack. They had not gone far when the steward overtook them, accusing them of stealing the master's cup. They vehemently denied it, so sure of their innocence that they declared, If any of your servants is found to have it, he will die, and the rest of us will become my lord's slaves. The steward searched their sacks, starting with the oldest and ending with the youngest. The cup was found in Benjamin's sack. In despair, they tore their clothes and returned to the city, falling on the ground before Joseph. This time it was Judah who spoke. In a passionate and moving plea, he explained how their father's life was bound up with the boy's life, how he had personally guaranteed Benjamin's safety, and how their father would surely die of grief if they returned without him. Now then, Judah begged, please let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? Judah's selfless plea was the final proof of his transformation. Joseph could no longer control himself. He ordered everyone to leave the room, and then, alone with his brothers, he broke down, weeping so loudly that the entire house of Pharaoh heard it. I am Joseph, he cried out. Is my father still alive? His brothers were too terrified to answer. Come closer, he said gently. I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. It was not you who sent me here, but God. He embraced his brother Benjamin, and they both wept. Then he kissed all his brothers, weeping with them. He urged them to hurry back to Canaan, to bring their father, their families, and all their possessions to Egypt, to live in the fertile land of Goshen, for there were still 5 years of famine to come. Pharaoh himself endorsed the plan, providing wagons and provisions for the journey. The brothers returned to Canaan and told their father, Joseph is still alive, and he is governor over all of Egypt. Jacob's heart stood still. He did not believe them. But when he heard all the words Joseph had said and saw the wagons sent to carry him, his spirit revived. It is enough, Israel said. My son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die.